Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaivasvataya Mrityave Brahma Vidyacharyaya Nachiketase cha. Humble prostrations to one and all present here. So in the last class, we have seen samsara vriksha in detail. Urdhvamulam avakshakha eshoshvathas sanatanaha. That samsara vriksha with the primary root on top and branches below. So this tree is called Sanatana Vriksha, eternal tree. So in detail we had seen in the last class. So what is this samsara vriksha? This samsara vriksha is nothing but the constant experience of change. We are constantly experiencing this change in us, around us, outside us. What all are the entities that change? Our outer world changes. The things, beings, situations in the outer world, they change. Even the world itself changes. 14 worlds are there. So the beings go from one world to another. Again, our inner world, that also changes. The inner world of thoughts, aspirations, emotions, understanding about life. So the inner world of thoughts also change. So we are all are entities. Who are we? We are entities who are the experiencers of this constant change happening inside and outside. We are the experiencers. Birth after birth, death after death, life after life, we are constantly experiencing this change. How to come out of this change? So the next topic is related to that. To come out of this change, we have to hold on to that which is changeless. So is there anything which is changeless? So this first verse says, Tadeva Shukram Tad Brahma Tadeva Amrutamuchyate Tasmin Lokaha Shritaha Sarve Tadu Na Atyeti Kaschana Etad Vaitat. Yes, there is one thing which is changeless. Amidst all these changes, there is one thing which is changeless. What is that? Tat Brahma. That is Brahman. The famous Brahman in the Vedas. The ultimate reality, the infinite reality. So there is one thing which doesn't change, and that changeless entity is Brahman, which is none other than the consciousness in us, the pure consciousness, which is none other than the Supreme Self in us. So this one thing doesn't change. So what is the glory of this Brahman? Tad eva shukram. Tad eva shukram. Tad moolam eva shukram. In this samsara vriksha, that primary root, which is urdhva mulaha, that alone is shukram. Shukram means shubhram, shuddham, pure. So that primary root of the samsara tree, which is Brahman, that moolam eva shukram, that primary root alone is pure. So this primary root is none other than the Supreme Self in us. This Supreme Self alone is pure. This consciousness in us alone is pure. That means what? The entire tree of samsara is impure. The entire tree of samsara is impure. The only thing which is pure is this primary root of this samsara tree. Now a question may come, why is this samsara tree impure? This samsara tree is impure because the whole tree exists upon our vasanas, upon our desires of the mind. The entire tree is nothing but a projection of an impure mind. And therefore, the entire tree is illusory. Hence, the samsara tree is called impure. On the other hand, consciousness is pure because there is only one thing which is not a creation of our mind. Consciousness is not a projection of our mind, and therefore it is the only thing which is real. Hence, consciousness alone is pure. Anything born out of illusion is impure. Anything real is pure. In this sense, samsara tree is impure. This pure consciousness, the primary root of this samsara tree, is pure. And that is why when we meditate on anything of this world, any of the sense object of this world, the mind becomes impure. The mind becomes disturbed. On the other hand, when we meditate upon consciousness, when we meditate upon God, when we meditate upon our Supreme Self, the mind becomes peaceful. So this can be a definition of what is pure and what is impure. That meditating upon which the mind becomes pure, the mind becomes peaceful, that is pure. That meditating upon which the mind becomes disturbed is impure. Anything which disturbs the mind is impure. Anything which quietens the mind is pure. Again, confusion is impurity, clarity is purity. Any illusory thing is impure because it puts us in delusion, in confusion. And therefore, the entire samsara tree is impure. The only pure thing is pure consciousness, the primary root of the samsara tree. Now, what is the unique feature about this primary root, this Brahman? So it is said here, Tad eva amrutam uchyate. That Brahman, that Supreme Self, that pure consciousness, that primary root alone is amrutam uchyate. That alone is immortal, amrutam. Everything else is perishable, mrita swabhavam. So the entire samsara is perishable. Anything that perishes can give only sorrow. Anything which gives us sorrow is impure. That is the reason why samsara tree is impure. Anything which gives us joy, permanent joy, is pure. So, if we want to escape from sorrow, there is only one way. Hold on to the imperishable reality in us. And the only thing imperishable is the self in us. Never ignore that. What perishes is the BMI. What remains imperishable is a witness of the BMI. So this witnessing consciousness is immortal. The meditator of immortal consciousness becomes immortal. This is a law. Whatever we pay attention to, Whatever we meditate upon, that we become. This is the law. So, if we pay attention to the mortal BMI, if we meditate upon the mortal BMI, if we give importance to the mortal BMI, then we will experience mortality. We will experience the properties of BMI. But on the other hand, if we pay attention to the consciousness in us, the immortal consciousness in us, when we meditate upon the immortal consciousness in us, when we give importance to this consciousness in us, the self in us, then we will experience immortality. So this is a loving advice of the Upanishad. May you give importance to this consciousness in you. May you not get caught up in the illusory samsara, but may you shift your attention to the witness of this samsara. Then what will happen to you? Then you will experience immortality. Then you will be free from all sorrows. Now a person may ask question, but what about the world? Upanishad is asking us to pay importance to the self. That's okay. But what about the world? I am in the world. How can I deny this world? And I clearly see that I am a small, puny, tiny, little nothing in the world. How can I just pay attention to the self and solve all problems? This may be the question we may ask. So here is the answer. So what does Upanishad say? So the glory of the self is pointed out in clear terms. What does Upanishad say? Tasmin lokaha shritaha sarve. Don't think that the self in you is an insignificant thing. No, no. Tasmin sarve lokaha shritaha. It is upon this self, upon this Brahman, upon this pure consciousness, that sarve lokaha shritaha. All the worlds. Shritaha means what? Ashritaha. All the worlds depend upon this self in you. The whole world is resting in your own self. The whole world is supported by the self. The whole world has no existence apart from the self. The world has only a borrowed existence, borrowed from the self. So this is the glory of the self. Again, Shruti Mata speaks in very clear terms. Tat u na atyeti kaschana. There is none which transcends the self. There is nothing which is higher than the self. This self is the ultimate reality. None dare to disobey the self, overrule the self, or become more important than the self. This is true because self alone is real, all else is unreal. How can the unreal overrule the real? How can the snake projected on the rope become more important than the rope? The unreal appears to exist only because of the real. So this is the mistake we all are making. We give so much of importance to the unreal ego, the unreal BMI, the unreal world, and we completely neglect the real self. And therefore, what is our condition? We suffer throughout our lives. So the message is, pay attention to the inner unseen root and not the outer seen tree. Pay attention to the real inner self, not the illusory outer personality. Give importance to the inner consciousness in you. That witnessing consciousness is the Lord in you. Never ignore that reality in you. This is the only way to come out of this miserable existence of miserable existence in this world of change. The glory of the self is pointed out in the next verse also. Let us chant the next verse. Yadidam kincha jagat sarvam prana ejati nisrutam mahadbhayam vajramudyatam ya etat viduramritaste bhavanti. Yes. Yadidam kincha jagat sarvam. Whatever we see in this world, whatever is there in this world, big or small, subtle or gross, where does it exist? Prane sati nisrutam. Nisrutam means nirgatam. Nirgatam means has emerged. So, whatever we see in this world, from where have they emerged? Prane sati. It is because of prana. Here prana means Brahman. Whatever is seen in this world has emerged from Brahman, from the Supreme Self. So everything in this world has emerged because of Brahman alone, because of Self alone. So this existence of this world is not its own independent existence. It is a borrowed existence, borrowed from the Self. Self exists and therefore the world exists. And therefore, who should be given importance, the world or the self? The self alone. Not only that this world has come out of Brahman, the world also functions in Brahman. Prane ejati. Ejati means to move. Ejati means to function. Prane in Brahman. So the world moves in Brahman. The world functions in Brahman. So not only that, the world came out of Brahman, it also functions in Brahman. Meaning, even the laws of the functionings of the world are decided by Brahman. The world functions based on so many laws. They are called the laws of this universe. So if there is a law, there has to be a lawmaker. So who is the lawmaker? This question is answered here. The lawmaker and the law administrator, both of them are Brahman alone. In technical terms, we use the term Saguna Brahman. So Brahman by itself, from the absolute standpoint, is called Nirguna Brahman. But with respect to creation, that Brahman is called Saguna Brahman. Saguna means attributes. So Brahman with guna is called Saguna Brahman. So with respect to creation, that Brahman is called Saguna Brahman. With respect to itself, from the absolute standpoint, it is called Nirguna Brahman. So supreme reality in the context of creation is called Saguna Brahman, or we call it Ishvara. So then that Brahman, that Saguna Brahman becomes Sarvajna, all-knowing, Sarvavyapi, all-pervading, Sarvashaktiman, all-powerful Ishvara. So the world exists in Brahman. The world functions in Brahman. The laws of this world are decided by Brahman, and the laws are strictly administered by Brahman. How strictly are these laws administered? So the next line, Mahad Bhayam. That Lord is Mahad Bhayam, is a great terror. He creates great fear in all. Everybody is scared of him because he is very, very strict. Nothing can escape his eye. None can fool him. None can cheat him. He sees everything. He knows everything. We may escape the worldly courts. We may escape the worldly police. We may escape all the worldly disciplining authorities. We can escape from them. We can cheat them. But there is a divine court where nothing can be hidden, where there is absolute justice. There the judgment is absolutely fair, because the Lord, as the witness in us, as a consciousness in us, sees everything. We can never do anything without His knowledge. In the light of consciousness alone, all our thoughts, words, and deeds happen. So, in the light of consciousness, everything is happening. Therefore, nothing is happening in the dark. Everything is happening in the daylight of consciousness. Hence, nothing can be hidden from consciousness. Those who know this reality, they fear to do wrong things, because no wrong action will go unpunished. This creates bhayam, fear. And this bhayam is good. Why is it good? This bhayam, this fear, will prevent us from doing all wrong things. Hence, Mahad Bhayam, that Lord who creates fear in all. That is why we say Bhaya Bhakti. Bhaya means fear, Bhakti means love, Bhakti means devotion. So, Bhaya and Bhakti both should be there for the Lord. We should have Bhakti also, devotion for the Lord also. But at the same time, we should have Bhaya also. When we are tempted to do the wrong things, there should be Bhaya in us. So, this Bhaya is a noble virtue. Those who don't have this fear, this Bhaya, while doing the wrong things, they fearlessly do the wrong things and later suffer the consequences of their ignoble papa karmas, ignoble deeds. So, fear of doing papa karma is a noble virtue. Now, how alert is the Lord in watching us? See the next term. Vajram Udyatam. Vajra means thunderbolt. Udyatam means upraised. Vajram Udyatam. So, Bhagavan is ever ready, ever alert with an upraised thunderbolt in hand. So here Bhagavan Shankaracharya says, Yatha Vajra Udyatakaram Swaminam Abhimukhi Bhutam Drishtva Bhritya Niyamena Tat Shasane Vartante Tatha Idam Chandra Aditya Graha Nakshatra Tarakadi Lakshanam Jagat Sa Ishwaram Niyamena Kshanam Api Avishrantam Vartate Iti Uktam Bhavati. So here Bhagavan Shankaracharya says, just as servants finding their master in front with an uplifted thunderbolt methodically follow his command, similarly this universe, consisting of the sun, the moon, the planets, the constellations and the stars, this universe continues methodically without taking rest even for a moment. Why is it so? Because Jagat Sa Ishwaram, because there is a God who is looking after this world. The Lord is paying 100% attention to this world. Everybody is under watch. And the Lord is ever ready to punish the careless and the lazy, the crooked and the wicked, the unrighteous and the self-centered, the sensuous and the indulgent, the corrupt and the arrogant. The Lord is ever ready, ever alert with an upraised thunderbolt, like a master with a stick. Even in the school also we find, the schoolmaster ever ready to punish the lazy, the crooked, wicked students in the class. Good children need not fear the teacher. It is only the bad children who bully others, who are disobedient, who are harsh. Only they need to fear the stick of the teacher. So too here, the Lord is ever there with an upraised thunderbolt. This thunderbolt, Vajrayudha, is the most powerful weapon of Indra, the king of Devatas. Now, what is this thunderbolt? Here, upraised thunderbolt means every moment the law is operating on us with an unfailing accuracy. This is the meaning. None can escape it. And these laws are functioning 24/7, constantly, at all times. For example, the moment we entertain a negative thought, what happens to the mind? The mind is disturbed. The disturbance of the mind is the striking of the thunderbolt. Striking of the thunderbolt means what? It creates suffering. So the moment a negative thought is entertained, the mind is disturbed, the thunderbolt is struck. And if we are careless about this negative thought, we don't pay attention to this negative thought, we allow it to breed, we allow it to become gross and express into the outer world. We allow this negative thought to express in the outer world as negative speech, harsh speech, hurting words. Then what will happen? Then the thunderbolt will strike even harder. We start getting abuses from others as well. You see? So there is an intensity of striking also. At the mind level, the pain is less. From the outer world, if you are careless about this negative thought, it becomes a negative speech, then the thunderbolt strikes even harder. And if the negative speech is allowed to become negative action, then the thunderbolt will strike even harder. We get blows from others. Finally, it is possible that some violence will happen, and maybe that person may be imprisoned also. So these are all the strikings of the thunderbolt. So the more we are careless, with greater power the thunderbolt strikes us. But on the other hand, if we are careful, sensitive, if we correct ourselves at the thought level itself, then there is nothing to fear about this thunderbolt. If we act upon the inner warning given by the Lord and correct ourselves, then we are safe. So please understand, Bhagavan is not just a punisher, he loves us also dearly. So how does his love express? His love expresses as disturbance of the mind when we think something negative. That disturbance of the mind we can see as the love of the Lord also. Wherever there is love, there is concern. Wherever there is love, there is attention. So Bhagavan, every moment he pays attention to us. He pays attention to every thought in us. He warns us, guides us. So those people who listen to his warning, his loving guidance, there is nothing to fear. Thunderbolt will never touch them. In fact, they are blessed with lotus. Lotus means perfection of the self. But if you are gross and careless, then the world is designed to give us pain and suffering. So, this pain and suffering from the outer world is the strike of the thunderbolt. So, Udyatam, upraised state of thunderbolt, means the law is ever operative, the law is precise, the law is ever functional, the law is perfect, the law is ever ready to operate on us. That's the meaning Udyatam. That ever readiness of the law is indicated by the term Udyatam. Vajram indicates power. The laws are implemented with great force, which none can override or overrule. So there is power and there is precision. That's the meaning Vajram Udyatam. What happens when a person knows this and lives a righteous life? So it is said here, Yaha etad viduhu te amritaha bhavanti. Yaha etad viduhu, the one who knows this. So Bhagavan Shankaracharya says, Swa atma pravritti sakshi bhutam ekam brahma yaha etad viduhu. The one who knows this, what does he know? The one who knows this, that there is this Lord as the self in me, the witnessing consciousness in me, who is witnessing my every thought, word, and deed. Those who know this, te amrutaha bhavanti, they become immortal. Merely knowing will not do, our life must be lived accordingly. The proof of knowledge is implementation. So, what is the knowledge spoken here? The knowledge that the self is everything, that the whole world exists upon the self, that this self alone is the lawmaker and law administrator, that there is a ruler of this world and that ruler is the self in us. This is the knowledge. So, how to implement this knowledge? So, such a person who knows this, his life will completely change. How will it change? What will happen to such a person? He will naturally give the greatest importance to the self. He will do everything to please the Lord in him. He will never walk the path of unrighteousness. He will cultivate all the noble virtues of life and try to eradicate all vices. Such a person's life will be a God-oriented life. Such a person will cheerfully accept the choiceless situations as prasad from the Lord. He will never complain or grumble. All his actions will be selfless and for the welfare of all. And such a noble soul becomes the recipient of God's grace. Such a person becomes qualified to know the self. And when he knows the self, he comes to know his immortal nature. Te amritaha bhavanti. This is how this knowledge helps us become immortal. Now, how is this Lord ruling this universe? So this topic continues. Next verse, verse number 3. Bhayadasyagnistapati bhayatapati suryah bhayadindrascha vayuscha mrityurdhavati panchamaha. So this verse says the Lord is in full control over the entire world. Asya bhayat agnihi tapati. Out of his fear, fire burns. that ability in the fire to burn, that has come from the Lord. The fire is capable of burning only because of Lord. The Lord blessed the fire, and therefore the fire is able to burn. So that burning power is not its own power. It is a power given by the Lord. That's the meaning. So in this way, everything, all the laws in this universe are functioning so well out of His fear. None dare to disobey the Lord. This is the meaning. Suppose there is a master who is watching everything using a CCTV camera. Then none of the servants will dare to remain idle or pass away time in gossip, because then they may lose the job. In the same way, everything in this cosmos is functioning so well because there is a law administrator. There can never be a time when the fire says, today is Sunday, so I will take a break. Today I will be cold instead of hot. The fire can never say this. 24/7, fire has to do its swadharma, its duty. In the same way, bhayat tapati suryaha. Sun gives heat and light to the whole world, nourishes the whole world. It has to rise and set every day. Not even one day sun can take a break. Sunday is a holiday for every one of us except sun. Sun is described in our scriptures as the greatest karma yogi. It burns itself day and night for the welfare of all. But who has created that sun? The Lord says, I did it. I gave it the power to illumine the world, to nourish the world. And that sun functions so well because of my presence, because of my fear. Bhayat tapati surya. In the same way, bhayat indrascha vayuscha. Indra, the king of all gods, the king of devatas. Indra is also lord of rains. And Vayu, the wind god. All these devatas, these cosmic deities, they function efficiently in this universe because of that Lord, because of the fear of that Lord. Mrityur dhavati panchamaha. And the death, Mrityu, the fifth, dhavati, runs and does his job. So here Mrityu is called the fifth deity. So Surya, Indra, Vayu, Agni, and the fifth one is Mrityu. Mrityu, Lord Death, has no time to sit quiet and relax, because every moment somebody or the other is dying in this world. Mrityu is there in a drying leaf. Mrityu is there in a wrinkling skin. There is Mrityu for every cell, every plant, every insect, every bird, every human being. Every cell there is Mrityu. And what is this Mrityu? As Puja Gurudev used to say, it is constructive destruction. So this constructive destruction is happening in every atom of this universe. Hence, Mrityu Devata is running all the time. Mrityur Dhavati. Not just walking, but running. He is very, very busy. He is very, very busy in taking people to Yamaloka. See the efficiency of Yamadharmaraj. A person cannot escape death, how much ever rich he may be, influential he may be, powerful he may be. He cannot even purchase one extra second with his wealth. This is the efficiency with which cosmic forces are functioning. Why is Kala Devata so efficient? It is because there is a higher authority who is the boss of even Lord Death. People think Lord Death is the ultimate authority, but there is another higher authority who is even higher than death also. That's the meaning. Very interestingly, the whole of Kathopanishad is given by Yamadharmaraj. And that Yamadharmaraj himself is talking about Mrityu. So he himself is talking about himself. He is as though saying to Nachiketa, our boss is so strict and efficient that we have not even 1 second to spare, 1 second to take rest or to relax. We dare not mess up with our duties. As though Yamaraj is telling Nachiketa about his boss. So, in short, all these cosmic forces don't have any independent powers. They function borrowing the power from the Lord. All powers belong to Lord alone. This is a message. All these gods are so powerful, so how much more powerful the Supreme Lord must be? And where is that Lord? That Lord is in our own hearts, shining as the very self in us. Therefore, may we never forget that Lord. Paying attention to Him itself is the greatest worship of Him. Paying attention to the self. This itself is a great worship. This is the point. And suppose we ignore this Lord, then what will happen? There is a great price to pay. What is that price? That is the next verse, verse number 4. Iha chedasakat bodhum प्राक्शरीरस्य विस्रसः ततः सर्गेषु लोकेषु शरीरत्वाय कल्पते. Iha bodhum ashakat chet. If one is able to know it, knowing what? Knowing this Brahman, this pure consciousness, this supreme self in us, this primary root of the samsara tree, if one is able to know it, iha means what? Jivaneva, even when we are alive in this world, when prak sharirasya visrasaha, sharirasya visrasaha prak, before the fall of this body, before the death of this body, if a person is able to gain the self, the knowledge of the self, before the death of this physical body, then what will happen? So now we will have to add this line, samsara bandhanat vimuchyate. This we will have to add. Samsara bandhanat vimuchyate. Such a person becomes free from bondage. If this great self is known even when we are alive, then we become free from bondage. But nachet ashakat bodhum. So this line also has to be added. Nachet ashakat bodhum. If we are not able to know it, if we don't gain the self when we are alive, if we ignore this self, then what will happen? Tataha sharirattvaya kalpate. Then we become fit for embodiment. Then we will have to take a body. We will have to be reborn. Where? Sargeshu lokeshu. In the world of creatable beings. So this world is a world of creatable beings. Bhagavan Shankaracharya says, Sargeshu, Yeshu Srishtavyaha Praninaha Srijyante. This world is a world meant for the ones who deserve to be created, who deserve rebirth. So when we ignore the reality and live our life, we become fit for rebirth. as though rebirth is a punishment for not learning the right lessons of life. Just like a student who has failed in a particular class has to come back and learn the lesson again, going back to the same class, so too we come back to this world taking up a body to relearn the important lessons of life. Nobody can escape from life. If you have not learned the lesson, come back to this world. So, this is a warning given by Shruti Mata for all of us. Don't waste your time. Use your time well for spiritual gain. Don't get distracted. There may be so many distractions in the world. Don't get entangled in them. You have come here for a purpose. Pay attention to this great purpose, to this great goal in life. There's a great gain called liberation. You can end this miserable birth-death cycle. But then, if you ignore this golden opportunity, then you will have to pay a heavy price. And that heavy price is rebirth. So it is a warning given by Shruti Mata, a loving warning. A warning full of love and concern. Don't misuse this opportunity. So Bhagavan Shankaracharya says, Tasmat Sharira Visramsanat Prak Atmabodhaya Yatnaha Astheyaha. Hence, one must strive for the self-knowledge before the fall of this body. So it will be very clear from this verse, liberation is not something which is gained after death. It has to be gained while living. It becomes very clear in this verse. Liberation is not something which we gain after death. It is gained while living. It is gained through intelligent living. When we intelligently make use of our time, paying attention to the self, the reward of this intelligent living is liberation. It can never be gained after death. So Swami Taponji Maharaj used to say, if a person says, I will gain mukti after death, if a person says, it is like a man telling his wife, you will get a child through me after my death. If a child has to be born through him, then that should happen only when he is alive, not after his death. So too, if at all mukti is possible, it has to be gained before death only. Now, there is another reason why we must strive hard in this world for self-knowledge. Why this opportunity is a golden opportunity. So a very unique reason is given in the next verse. That next verse we will see in the next class. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ